Hey everyone, welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. In today's episode, we're going to be studying a piece by the career 3D artist known as Gabrielle Salonga, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at the vaporwave aesthetic, we're going to look at the Dreamcore aesthetic, we're also going to explore the concept of visual rhythm, so let's just jump right into it. So whenever you first see this work, of course, your eye is caught by these various rhythmic arches just cast down into the composition. One of the first things I ask myself is, where exactly are we? We see what appears to be a pool of some kind or another, a very empty space beyond. But, we no doubt wonder where exactly we are, what even is happening here. Of course, the perspective here, we're kind of placed away from this, and you'll notice how this, of course, converged into a main vanishing point. There is another one within this composition as well, of course, 2-point perspective here. This gives a sense of realism to the composition and, of course, immerses us so well within this work. And you may also notice, of course, the colors within this work, right? We see blue and purple as the main set of colors within the work at hand. This, of course, is an analogous color scheme. This is going to be quite balanced, give a sense of harmony to the composition as well. And like I said in the beginning, your eye is drawn to these various rhythmic arches, and this greater structure as a whole is quite reminiscent of a Roman aqueduct. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second, but going back to these arches here, of course, there is a sense of visual rhythm to the composition. The eye is just drawn, of course, downward, but it casts from one arch to another. I think a brilliant sense of visual rhythm to the work at hand. And once again, I want to ask you guys, where do you think we are? What do you think is happening within the work at hand? Of course, the destination of this work is quite hard to pin down with any set certainty. We see quite a vacant space within. We see what appears to be a radiator of some kind or another, some type of machine, maybe a radio. It's hard to say exactly what's going on, but regardless, this work is quite empty, and no doubt reminds of the surreal scapes of the dream, right? The dream is a place where things can kind of emerge, they can flow and build and destroy themselves all within the same cyclical breath. But within this work, there is a sense of that surreal, right? The colors are strangely dreamy. The surface of this work is incredibly smooth as well. It does feel surreal or even ethereal in that aspect as well. And like I said, this is quite reminiscent of a Roman aqueduct. The aqueducts were considered an engineering marvel at their time, right? They were used to funnel massive amounts of water into the city of Rome, of course, many different areas as well. But you can imagine just how much engineering, just how much work it would take to build something like that. So that is what reminds me of the work at hand. You see these various arches that are reminiscent of the Roman aqueducts, and like I said, we see this lone radiator or a machine of some kind within the work, and this makes the work feel quite lonely. There is a sense of emptiness to the composition, and that even gives a sense of the surreal even more, right? We don't see chairs, we don't see furniture, we don't see people at all. There's no hint of life within this work. It is just absolute beauty, but it is a bit of an unsettling beauty as well. And I wanted to ask you guys, what do y'all see when you view this composition, or just what comes to mind when you're viewing this work? Is it unsettling in that aspect, or do you think this is more kind of calm and tranquil, that dreamy tones of the blue and purplish pink here, and of course the surface of the water as well? Some could certainly see that as tranquil, but whenever you look deeper within the building, you may see it as quite unsettling and quite lonely. But regardless, I see what is reminiscent of the vaporwave aesthetic. My mind was drawn to Hiroshi Nagai. He is a Japanese pop artist who really captured some great works of 1980s Americana. Of course, it is absolutely beautiful. He's often associated with the vaporwave aesthetic as well. He uses these very bright and lively colors. He often shows the coast, whether it's Miami, whether it's California. Regardless, my mind was drawn to Hiroshi Nagai whenever I view this work. So I just want to bring that in real quick and kind of point to the original artist of Hiroshi Nagai. I also wanted to bring in an additional work. This was the study or previous showcase, and she often deals with the intersection of the vaporwave and the Dreamcore aesthetic, and she does that so well. Of course, in the work on the right, you see these various archways, also quite reminiscent of that phenomenon known as visual rhythm as well. You also see that purplish pink or that blue as well, of course, reminiscent of the vaporwave aesthetic, but also reminiscent of the Dreamcore aesthetic as well. So just want to bring that in real quick and talk a little bit about Gabrielle Salonga and her intersection of the Dreamcore and the vaporwave aesthetic. I absolutely love her work. But yeah, we talked about the vaporwave aesthetic. It often incorporates the purplish pink and that sense of the blue or neon colors more broadly. But there also is a hint of the Dreamcore aesthetic. The Dreamcore is something that typically gives a sense of nostalgia, something of the past, but it also incorporates a feeling of emptiness or even the unsettling as well. So I think that's also quite important when we're looking at this composition. But really hope you'll enjoy today. I believe this is a digital render, and if this is, the original artist typically uses Cinema 4D to create her renders. So Cinema 4D truly is an industry standard. I know a lot of professionals who are using it, from Stuzor to Beeple to, of course, Gabrielle Salonga herself as well. And so if this is a digital render, that is likely the program that's going to be used here. But really hope y'all enjoyed today. We talked about so many different things, from the vaporwave aesthetic, the sense of visual rhythm, the eye is drawn to those arches. We talked about two-point perspective. We talked about the vaporwave aesthetic, the Dreamcore aesthetic. We also talked about the machine's kind of sense of loneliness or emptiness within the composition as well. So many different things we hit on today. I really hope y'all enjoyed. If y'all enjoyed, go check out the original artist Gabrielle Salonga, doing some amazing stuff in multiple different mediums. But yeah, like I said, that's all I have for today. Really hope y'all enjoyed. If y'all did, go check out the original artist. My name's Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.